Hello everyone, back again with movie and tune recap. Today, I'm going to explain an American psychological thriller horror film from 2013, titled The Secret Village. Spoilers ahead, so watch out and take care. In October 1666, in the Massachusetts colony, 22 villagers mysteriously die in rapid succession and a slave woman is accused of witchcraft and burned at the stake for the deaths. The truth behind the tragedy is hidden by the villagers and remains a secret to the outside world for centuries. The story shifts to Greg, a struggling thriller screenwriter, who moves into a rented room near Salem after being kicked out by his girlfriend. At the house, Greg meets Rachel, a journalist who also rent a room. While helping Rachel move her belongings, they are unknowingly watched by a black-robed cult member outside the house. Elsewhere, a man named Jason searches an abandoned house for a group of teens hiding inside. Armed with weapons, the teens try to defend themselves, but Jason overpowers them. He captures one boy and injects something into his neck with a syringe. One by one, he tracks down the others and does the same. Rachel recalls a story from her childhood about a small, isolated town in the Berkshires. Her schoolteacher had spoken about mysterious deaths and rumors of a cursed sickness in the Massachusetts colony. On her first day investigating the village as a journalist, Rachel meets Paul, a friendly local who tells her about the area's grim past. He shares rumors of ergot poisoning, strange conspiracies, and the influence of the town's elders. Paul warns Rachel to be careful, as many in the town will go to extreme lengths to keep their secrets hidden. When Rachel asks if there's any physical evidence of the mysterious outbreak, Paul mentions a secret cemetery used for mass burials. He also warned her that her life will be at risk if the villagers finds out she is trying to deep up the village past secret. As they talk, Rachel notices a man named Joe watching them from a nearby window, and when she points him out, Paul becomes worried and tells her to leave immediately. Arriving home, Rachel finds a note pinned to her front door, warning her to stop digging into the village's past, and that night, Rachel dreams of black-robed cult members gathered in a shadowy cemetery. The next day, Rachel and Greg go for a walk during which they bond over and know themselves better. Greg confides that he wants to write a story about a mysterious town with a dark history, mirroring the one they now live in. Intrigued, Rachel shares her theory that ergot poisoning caused by contaminated grain might explain the strange behavior and witchcraft accusations during the Salem witch trials. However, Rachel's questions upset the townspeople, who are tired of discussions about the town's history, and encouraged by Greg's faith in her, Rachel continues to dig deeper. Later, Rachel meets Paul at a secluded area where he gives Rachel an envelope with more materials on the ergot deaths, and leave immediately when he sees a ghost approaching him. Back home, Rachel examines the envelope contents, faded with photographs and newspaper clippings of people reportedly afflicted with ergot poisoning. The materials detail where the victims were housed and hint at sinister events buried in the town's history, and Rachel quickly calls her editor, Max, to share what she uncovered. The following day, Rachel visits the local graveyard to continue her research, and she meticulously examines old tombstones, hoping to match them to the people mentioned in the materials Paul provided. After taking pictures of the tombstones, Rachel prepares to leave, but she is caught by the black-robed cult members.
What are you doing?
The next day, Greg drives Rachel to meet Paul, and while Greg waits in the car, Rachel heads into Paul's house. Moments later, Greg sees Rachel sprinting out of the house in terror, and Greg starts the car and they speed away. When Greg asks why she was running, Rachel explains that she found Paul dead and was confronted by cult members inside his home. The following day, Rachel drives to her workplace, where a man named Jim, a friend of Paul's, meets her, and he gives her a packet containing more materials related to her investigation. Rachel soon realizes that Joe has followed her, and while at the cafe where she works, Greg comes to visit her, and Joe is seen watching them from a distance. Outside the cafe, Greg and Rachel share a kiss before Greg leaves, and unbeknownst to Rachel, Greg decides to visit Paul's house to investigate on his own. There, He meets Jason, who invites him inside. Greg also meets Joe, but their true intentions remain unclear. Later that evening, Rachel goes to Greg's room to check on him but finds it empty. She tries calling his phone, but he doesn't answer, and concerned, she leaves him a voicemail. Rachel then focuses on her research, unaware that a local is watching her through her window from outside the house. That night, Rachel has a vivid nightmare of Greg's lifeless body, surrounded by the black-robed cult members. The next day, Rachel follows a map from Jim's materials to an old building where she discovers books and records detailing the ergot poisonings in the village. She manages to retrieve one of the books but is interrupted when Jason and Joe, accompanied by a group of villagers, appear and chase her. Rachel narrowly escapes and locks herself inside her home. Joe and Jason attempt to coax her out, claiming they only want to talk, but Rachel refuses to open the door. Exhausted, she eventually falls asleep, and when she wakes up, Rachel goes through the packet of materials Jim gave her. Among the photographs and notes, she finds chilling images of Jason forcibly injecting people with syringes. The next day, Jim shares disturbing evidence with Rachel, revealing that the town has been imprisoning people afflicted by ergot poisoning, labeling them as witches. He shows her hidden documents, photos, and maps detailing how the townsfolk have maintained this sinister practice for generations. Jim promises to provide even more evidence of cover-ups and cult activity, and determined to uncover the truth, Rachel contacts her editor, requesting more time to investigate. Skeptical of her claims, Max insists she stick to the original story and meet her deadline. However, Rachel ignores and decides to work with Jim to expose the cult and its activities. Meanwhile, Joe and Jason repeatedly try to approach Rachel, claiming they want to speak to her, and convinced they plan to abduct her. Rachel flees every time she sees them. Her paranoia deepens as she begins having visions of Jason taunting her by saying she can't run forever, and with Greg still missing after several days, Rachel grows increasingly anxious about her safety. One day, after a meeting with Jim, Rachel returns home to find Greg waiting for her. Relieved yet angry, she confronts him, accusing him of abandoning her and ignoring the danger therein. Greg attempts to calm her, brushing off her fears as paranoia, and suggests they go out for dinner to take her mind off things. Though reluctant, Rachel agrees and heads upstairs to prepare, and after dressing up, Rachel sees Greg going through her research and watch him through the window as he leaves the house and hands the documents over to Joe, who's waiting outside. Hurt by this betrayal, she locks Greg out of the house and asks her skeptical editor to contact the police, and Rachel realizes she can trust no one. Undeterred, Rachel continues with her investigation, and Jim leads her to a secluded house where the town's cult allegedly imprisons victims of ergot poisoning. Before she can do anything to help them, she runs into Joe, who chases her down. However, she is cornered by Greg and Jason. To her shock, Greg sides with the men. He helps Joe restrain Rachel while Jason injects her with a syringe. Distraught, Rachel once again tearfully accuses Greg of betrayal before falling unconscious. In the following scene, flashbacks reveal an unsettling truth. Rachel has been suffering from ergot poisoning all along, and her supposed encounters with Jim and Paul were hallucinations caused by the illness. The house where she believed kidnapped victims were kept was just an abandoned building, and the sinister cult she feared was nothing more than the worried townsfolk trying to intervene. Joe and Jason are revealed to be concerned locals trying to get Rachel medical help, and desperate to help her recover, Greg agreed to take her to a specialist in New York. As Greg drives her out of town, they stop briefly so Greg can take a call from Joe, and while waiting in the car, Rachel experiences another vision of Jim. He pleads with her one last time, asking for her help to uncover the town's secrets. However, Rachel swallows a pill prescribed to her, causing Jim to vanish. After his call, Greg returns to the car and noticing Rachel's unease, he gently assures her that everything will be okay, and the movie concludes. Okay guys, that's all the recap about The Secret Village from 2013. Thanks for watching, see you again in the next video.